What time did you get out of work today? Friday, huh? The House and Senate quit work today before lunch, which is more work than they do most Fridays this year. But this wasn't just any Friday. This was the last day before the Trump presidency's 100th day. And Congress put in less than half a day because there is no Trump agenda item alive in Congress right now. There is no bill moving anywhere in Congress now. No legislative vehicle that is a Trump agenda item. We have never seen a 99th day like this for a president. Every president's busiest legislative year is the first year. It is when their power of persuasion over the Congress is at its highest, and it only goes down after that. What a president accomplishes in his first year is usually most of what the president will accomplish in his first term. This is so clear historically that when Bob Woodward chose to write a book entitled The Agenda, he decided to focus entirely on a president's first year. And he picked a president with a loaded first-year agenda, Bill Clinton. At this point in Bill Clinton's first year, the Congress was working overtime. At the same time, Congress was working on NAFTA, a giant tax bill, which was inside a giant budget bill. They were also working on a World Trade Agreement and the beginnings of both Clinton health care and Clinton welfare reform, along with little things like an emergency extension of unemployment insurance. Some of those things made it all the way to the finish line and became law in the first year, some in the second year, and some not at all. But they were all important in the first year. They were all being worked on every Friday afternoon of the first year of the Clinton presidency. And I don't necessarily mean that the House and the Senate were in session every Friday afternoon, although they were a lot. What I mean is anyone casually following the news could tell you what the Clinton agenda was and what parts of it Congress was actively working on. That is not true tonight. We can't tell you that they're actively working on anything. Republicans in the House have certainly wanted it to appear as though they are working on a health care bill. But when Congress is really working on something, the House and the Senate both have to work on it. Notice that no one in the Senate has been even pretending to work on a health care bill or consult with the House in any way on a bill that would have to pass the United States Senate. So nothing about what House Republicans are doing or have been doing on health care reform actually looks like real legislative activity. And it certainly isn't real enough to keep them in Washington after lunch on a Friday, even though the Trump presidency desperately needed some kind of legislative accomplishments within the first 100 days. There's only one thing we can promise you about the second year of the Trump presidency, and that is that the Trump presidency will accomplish less in the second year than in the first year, and that is because all presidencies accomplish less in the second year than they do in the first year. Because, as presidents always discover, when Congress enters an election year, Congress does even less than Congress did the year before. They don't take risks. That is just a fundamental rule of Congress that has nothing to do with President Trump. When you factor in how much time Congress is going to take off this year for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, for the entire month of August, the 4th of July, Memorial Day week, Donald Trump is now more than a third of the way through his first year of dealing with Congress, and he has nothing to show for it. Less than any president in modern history. And that could be why he's saying things like this.
Well, I loved my previous life. I loved my previous life. I had so many things going. I actually, this is more work than in my previous life. I thought it would be easier. I thought it was more of I'm a details-oriented person. I think you would say that. But I do miss my old life. I like to work, so that's not a problem. But this is actually more work.
Okay, that's amazing stuff. Could we just replay the middle of that?
I thought it would be easier. I thought it was more of I'm a details-oriented person.
More of a what? I thought it would be easier. I thought it was more of a... And then he does that Donald Trump thing. He cuts off Donald Trump. He doesn't let Donald Trump finish Donald Trump's thought. That's the most important sentence in what he just said. I thought it would be easier. I thought it was more of a... Feel free to tweet me your guesses about how he was going to finish that sentence before he decided that he shouldn't finish that sentence. Whatever he was going to say, Donald Trump himself decided he shouldn't say it. It was against Donald Trump's better judgment. Imagine what it had to be for Donald Trump to think, oh, better not say that. He thought it was going to be more of a what? The president gave that interview yesterday. He knew Congress would be gone less than 24 hours later, and he'd be stuck with his 100 days of zero legislative accomplishments on the Donald Trump campaign agenda, which was supposed to be the Trump presidency's first-year agenda. Some of it was supposed to be the Trump presidency's first-day agenda. But just about all of it was supposed to be the Trump presidency's first 100-day agenda. A deadline that the president himself imposed.
That's why I proposed a contract with the American voter. It's a set of promises for what I'll do in my first 100 days. It includes getting rid of immediately Obamacare, which is a disaster.
And now he misses his previous life. Did you hear the way he said that? He sounded like the narrator in a British novel looking back on his previous life from his now much more troubled, tragic life.
Well, I loved my previous life. I loved my previous life. I had so many things going.
Has there been a more poignant line uttered by a president in his first 100 days? I loved my previous life. Did you hear his voice completely fall out when he said, I had so many things going? On the word going, and you listen to that again, on the word going, he just sinks. The man has never been more publicly self-aware, more publicly introspective, which isn't saying much because introspection is not Donald Trump's thing. But listen to it one more time and ask yourself, how happy is your president?
Well, I loved my previous life. I loved my previous life. I had so many things going.
So many things going. In a speech to the National Rifle Association today, the president once again revisited his glory days. Actually, it was his glory day.
What fun that was, November 8th. Wasn't that a great evening? Do you remember that evening? Remember they were saying, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has won the state of Michigan. They go, Michigan, how did that?
He goes on and on about it. You've heard it all before. He was supposed to be telling them about how he dramatically, to everyone's surprise, pulled off a victory in getting Obamacare repealed and replaced when everyone said he couldn't. But he doesn't have that story to tell. And so he tells his favorite story, the election night story. And now in interviews, he's looking back plaintively at when he thought it would be easier.
It's so much easier to be presidential because I don't have to use any energy.
You know, being presidential is easy. Much easier than what I have to do. You're going to have such great health care at a tiny fraction of the cost, and it's going to be so easy. The wall is peanuts. That's going to be one of the easy negotiations, believe me.
We're going to make America great again. It's going to be easy.
Joining us now, Nicholas Kristof, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the New York Times, Charlie Sykes, editor-in-chief of Right Wisconsin and an MSNBC contributor. Nick, the one contribution I had to campaign coverage when it would come to a Trump speech or debate or something was simply to say, that's not going to happen. That, you know, get rid of NAFTA, that's not going to happen. I could just rattle off all the things that weren't going to happen. I did expect the big tax cut to happen. Republican presidents get elected, they cut taxes. There's a way to do that. George W. Bush did it right away. So I'm sitting here not having come close to predicting they would actually get 0 on the tax cut. But I don't have any other surprises. Are you surprised by where we are in the 100 days?
I think I had more faith than you did in the president's incompetence.
Okay.
I mean, it seemed to me, doubtful that he would actually manage to get these things through. And I'm indeed still, I don't think he's going to get a health care bill through. I don't think he's going to get a tax bill actually passed. And in fact, I doubt that he's going to get an infrastructure bill, which is really the lightest load of all, actually through. And I think that, that's why he's so plaintive, that I think he thought this was going to be like being America's homecoming king and all cheers. And in fact, it turns out to be about policy, which he is not interested in, and about MSNBC and the New York Times saying that he hasn't accomplished anything.
Right. Yeah. And Charlie, I think I get the feeling that the president thought, I get to be popular by being president, that yes, it'll be great if I have a bunch of accomplishments in the 100 days, but if I don't have a bunch of accomplishments, don't I still get to be popular?
I think there's a lot going on there, and you're right. This is the most poignant and revealing and defining quote of his presidency, because you unbutton it a little bit, and what he's basically acknowledging is how manifestly unqualified and unprepared he was. He had no idea what it was going to be like to deal with Congress. He had no idea what it was going to be what it was going to be like to deal with a federal judiciary. He didn't understand the Constitution. He had no idea how complicated the executive branch was, and frankly, he obviously had no idea the gravity of the decisions he would have to make as president of the United States, including on international affairs and trade. But what an amazing thing for him to sit down and go, yeah, I really had no idea what I was getting into, and when I promised that everything was going to be easy, I really didn't have a clue. Remarkable.
And Nick, it is semi-public information. I mean, for example, once you're elected president, to your surprise, let's say, on November 8th, you have time to grab Bob Woodward's book, The Agenda. It's not a long book. It's about the first year of a presidency. It's the single book to read if you're an incoming president, right? You'd pick up a lot. George Mitchell, former Senate Majority Leader, lives in New York City. He would come to Trump Tower and he would tell you, here's how it works. He would happily tell you that if you just took the time during the transition to have this kind of inquisitive mind about what is it I'm getting into.
Well, I mean, I must say, I don't think he has that inquisitive mind. I don't think there is any national politician I've ever known in my journalistic career who has been as uninterested in policy or as ill-informed about policy as President Trump. And I think this was compounded by the fact that he essentially wanted to blow up a system that he didn't understand and was trying to recruit allies who also wanted to blow it up, who, because they had that instinct, were unfamiliar with what they were trying to blow up. And that is why he, indeed, of the top 550 positions in the administration, he's even only nominated 10% of them. I mean, he doesn't have allies around the government. 200
vacant jobs at the State Department. Charlie Sykes, the incoming presidents have all been probably somewhere on the scale of egomaniac to go off in that direction in the first place. But they have all had some measure of humility, varying measures of humility, as they enter this transition into the presidency, where you can see them, and they will report this to people and to friends, feeling the enormity of it and feeling daunted by how much homework they have to do before January 20th and how much homework they're going to have to do every night after that.
Yeah, it's one thing to have a great ego, but, I'm not a psychologist. I don't play one on television, but Donald Trump is a narcissist in the classic term. So if the normal range of ego is here, he is over here, unburdened by, again, he's not an inquisitive mind, unburdened by much introspection, and obviously has no sense of humility. So I'm actually not thinking that admission that he didn't know what he was getting into means that, you know what, I really need to study more, I need to think more, I need to listen to more intelligent people. I mean, here's a man who came into the presidency and surrounded himself basically with the clown car of the White House staff that he has, many of whom are still there.
Let's listen to what the president said today when he was asked what made your job harder than you thought.
Mr. President, day 99, what's made this job harder than you thought?
I don't know, we're moving awfully well. We're getting a lot of things done. I don't think there's ever been anything like this. It's a false standard, 100 days, but I have to tell you, I don't think anybody has done what we've been able to do in 100 days. So we're very happy. Have a good time. Thank you.
Nick, I agree with him. It's a false standard. I think, but it's a standard he laid down for himself. But a first year is not a false standard. And when you're more than a third of the way through your first year and you have zero, it's worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more than, I mean, what everybody's talking about is no significant legislation passed, and that is true. But if you look at the cabinet, he has, you know, one of the least impressive cabinets one has seen. He's appointed the least number of people to the administration of anybody recently. He has the worst approval rating of any new president in polling history. And there's really nothing on the horizon that would give one reason to think that things are going to get better. I mean, you know, it has to be said that Bill Clinton had a somewhat rough start, not by these standards. John Kennedy had, again, a somewhat rough start, and they both managed to overcome that. In the case of President Trump, though, he comes at it from a so much more difficult position. In foreign affairs, I must say that there has been a real improvement by getting rid of Mike Flynn, bringing in McMaster. He has switched positions on one issue after another and brought himself much closer to the traditional conservative Republican position. And there's certainly much more of a reality-based posture in foreign affairs now than there was at the beginning.
Charlie, your final word on the 100 days of President Trump.
Well, the good news and the bad news for Donald Trump is that he has that echo chamber that no matter how badly he does, he has the alternative reality media machine that is going to, you know, beef him up. The bad news for him is that it's going to insulate him and he's not going to hear what he needs to hear. But I think that the one thing that is probably the most troubling development is, and I know this word has been overused a lot, but, you know, as we near the 100 days, how much of his behavior has been normalized? You know, how much we have absorbed and normalized his approach to the truth? How much we have normalized, you know, that he continues to use slurs like Pocahontas? You know, the bizarre, erratic nature of this presidency. And I think that that's something that we were concerned about at the very beginning. But look, there's huge stakes for everybody, for conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans, in at least stepping back and going, okay, you know, we got to put the country first. You know, we're no longer, you know, in the celebrity apprentice. This is tougher than reality TV, and the stakes are a little bit higher for all of us.
Charlie Sykes gets the last word in this segment. Nick Kristof, Charlie Sykes, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.